A decent scale costs 25 euros. This one costs 90. And it's not about precision. After 3 months, I think I know who this is for. The strange thing about the Bookoo Themis Ultra is this: it's not better where most people expect. Precision, response time, those are fine, but they're not the competitive advantage. This is a scale for people who want more control, more data, and more tools to actually understand what's happening in the cup, not just measurement. And yes, it can cost more than a DeLonghi Stylosa, a machine I've covered extensively on this channel, one of the best entry-level options out there. So clearly, this is not for beginners. But if you have a machine with X61 group, a flare, or a Cathlet robot, this becomes way more interesting. You can add a Bluetooth pressure sensor to the group head and see pressure and flow together in the same chart. Before going further, Bookoo sent me this scale upon my request. They didn't have access to this video before publishing, and no say in what I cover or conclusions, as is the norm in my channel. Let me start with Espressos and the feature I ended up using the most. On machines with a dimmer, I tested this on my DeLonghi Stylosa. The flow mode gives you a live flow rate reading during extraction. You're not flying blind without it. There's sound, the vibratory pump changes tone as you adjust. And if you're using a bottomless portafilter, you have a visual reference as well. But the flow rate on screen gives you some useful and quantitative information to control the extraction as you go and for your assessments later. And this is one of the relevant advantages for me. With some coffees, instead of grinding finer to slow the extraction, I tried reducing the flow. Same idea, more contact time, but a different strategy. That merit doesn't go to the scale alone, but with a regular scale, I would have only weight and total extraction time. With this flow in a chart, I had this insight and kept extracting some espressos with different settings, but low flow. It leads to lower body and less crema, but I got great results with some fermented coffees. One tip for the app: if you don't have the pressure sensor, use pour-over mode, not espresso mode. In espresso mode, you get a flow axis on one side and a pressure axis on the other. Without the sensor, that pressure side doesn't give you any information, and it can actually be misleading if you share the chart with someone. In pour-over mode, you have weight on one side and flow on the other. Much more useful. This is an advantage in terms of interface. The way Bookoo designed this scale will please both the people who count time from the first drop in the cup and the ones who, like me, count from the moment the pump is triggered. When I count from the pump, I can see the wetting phase. On my Stylosa, that's typically 5 to 7 seconds before the first drop. That number tells me something about how the puck is saturating, how fine or coarse I ground. Sometimes I stop there, let it bloom for 10 seconds, then continue. My total extraction might reach 60 seconds, but only 53 of those are active. If I only counted from first drop to stop, I would see 53 seconds and lose the full picture. Bookoo covers both cases. Auto mode starts the timer with the first drop. If you want to count from the pump, you can start manually in the app. And afterwards, the chart shows all the phases separately. You can also configure the stop trigger, flow stop or cup removal. Both will stop the timer in the app and on the scale, whether you're bring manually or through the app. I prefer to set it for cup removal because I also use this scale for pour-over. If you're in the Gaggiuino or Gaggimate ecosystem, this gets interesting. I tested it on my Ranchillo Silvia running Gaggiuino, enabled Bluetooth scales, disabled the hardware module, and it just worked. And why would you use or not your Bookoo with Gaggiuino? The load cells for what they call hardware scales on Gaggiuino sit under the drip tray, which means more space between the drip tray and the portafilter. Using the Themis Ultra instead, sitting on top, it's the opposite. However, for beginners doing the mod for the first time, Bluetooth means less complexity. The hardware scales are cool, but more complicated to install. And if you have a Gaggimate, there's no hardware scales option today. Then if you want auto stop on weight, you need a Bluetooth scale. Not necessarily a Bookoo, there are several options, including a cheap one from AliExpress, but I do recommend a Bluetooth scale if you have Gaggimate. Now, switching a bit to pour over, the ratio mode is especially great for those who are not good at math. Here's the problem it solves. Say you have a recipe 1 to 15 to times the dough's weight for blooming, then add up to 60% of the total brew in the second pour, and up to 100% to finish. Maybe easy for 10 grams, but when your recipe is 1 to 16 and you scale up to 20 grams in for 320 grams out, the arithmetic mid-power can be confusing for some people. If you're on a 1 to 16 ratio, 60% of that is always 9.6, whether you're pulling 10, 15, or 20 grams. Much simpler. Just remember that on the scale, you need to double tap the left side to register the dose. In the app, tap dose weight. I think Bookoo could change the app to sync the dose weight, but as of the day I'm filming this video, it doesn't sync. The good news is that the scale remembers the last dose, so if you always brew the same amount, you only need to do it once. In auto mode, the scale starts when the first drop hits and stops when you remove the cup if you didn't set to stop with the flow stop. Two things worth knowing before you start. There's a 1 to 2 seconds delay between lifting the cup and the app registering the stop. Small, but it will bother some people. If you stop in the app first, the scale follows immediately. And make sure your auto stop is set to cup removal, not flow stop. With flow stop, the scale ends your session at the first pause between powers. In a multi-power recipe, that's after the wetting phase. However, if you're using for espresso without blooming, the flow stop can be interesting to stop counting when you finish your extraction. Also worth knowing, the scale has a weight-only mode and a flow-only mode. If you want to weight your beans before grinding, you can switch to weight mode, then back to auto for brewing. I personally just reset the scale, but the option is there. And if you only use 2 or 3 modes regularly, you can hide the others in the app. I like it, it's faster to switch. The battery is one of the most underrated things about this scale. I received it 3 months ago at 8%, it's at 60 now, after 3 months of daily use. The scale weighs 430 grams, twice my Tiny2s at 212 grams. Part of that is the 2000 mAh battery. Whether this was intentional or not, the logic holds. Battery longevity isn't only determined by time, it's determined by how many times you recharge it. Fewer cycles, slower degradation. More relevant for professional use, but convenient at home too. Will it last 3 times longer than my Tiny2s? I don't know, but the build quality and the construction feel like it was made to last. It's also IP67, fully dust tight, waterproof to 1 meter for 30 minutes according to the certification specs. And if you had an accident with a kettle or knocked a V60 over and splashed coffee everywhere, you know what that means. The Themis Ultra is rated to survive that. Worth noting, this is specific to Themis Ultra, not to the other Bookoo models. After each brew, you choose whether to save the extraction. Over time, you build a library, charts, parameters, notes that you can go back and reevaluate. You can save your favorites, you can mark one as a reference, so on your next brew, that curve appears behind your current one in real time. Same flow, same timing, same volume. Useful for consistency, for dialing in a coffee, or just for building muscle memory in your powers. One feature I want to highlight before I get to the downsides: you can export any extraction to Excel, create your own charts, your own overlays, your own comparisons. Whatever the app doesn't give you natively, you can build it yourself. The app lets you log beans, grinder, machine, and brewing method, and build a full database of extractions over time. But I'll be honest, I don't log everything. Most mornings, I'm just making coffee. But when I'm dialing in a new bag or running a deliberate test, having that history is pretty useful. One thing I don't like: the taste profile graph. It's too simplified. Some dimensions that matter for me just aren't there, like bitterness level. If you use Bean Conqueror, you can integrate the scale with it, and a lot of hobbyists use it and like it. In my case, I had already decided it wasn't for me before I got the scale. It's too complex for how I actually brew day to day. So, to be honest, I went back to paper. Over the last few months, I built a set of printable sheets for tracking espressos, pour-overs, the best coffees I've bought or been gifted. The idea is simple: an A5 binder, a hole puncher, print your own sheets, and improve them as you go. I think this version is ready to be shared, but I'll keep updating and posting the last versions. There's a free download link in the description with an optional donation if you want to support the channel. And by the way, I also recently got a label printer, mainly for projects with my son, labeling things around the house, sharing bags with friends, and eventually freezing beans when I move to my new apartment. One thing I use it for is printing charts to include in my coffee diary. Not telling you to buy either. For most people, it's completely unnecessary, but it's part of my journaling kit now. Before creating too much FOMO, here's what I consider the downsides. The first is price. €90 sounds like a lot for scale. The Acaia Lunar, which is probably the closest in terms of features, costs at least €300 in Europe. The Acaia Pearl is around 200. The Difluid Microbalance around 150. So at €90, the Themis Ultra is competitive, but for regular users, it's still a lot. A second issue: it's also heavier than its peers, 430 grams, twice my Tiny2s. Not a travel scale, but great to leave on your coffee corner. The third is the learning curve. It's not as intuitive as a basic scale, of course, but the manual is too concise for all the features and possibilities it has. And there are no detailed video tutorials covering all the features I've shown here, and that's actually part of why this video is longer and full of footage to show you the house. Finally, the app still needs refinements. The main one, in my opinion: you can't overlay two extractions directly for comparison. The workaround I use: I take a screenshot before finishing, while the reference curve is still visible behind the current one. It works, but exporting to Excel and building your own overlay there is probably the cleaner solution at the moment. But who's gonna do that? I think it's too complicated, and Bookoo could just add some checkboxes and a compare button for us to see one extraction over the other in the app. The other improvement I wanted to see in the app is the sync between the app and scale when you weight your dose for the ratio mode. After a few months of daily use, the Themis Ultra has become my go-to scale for both espresso and pour-over. I just love it. My Tiny2s became my dosing scale. And again, this is not for everyone. It's for people who want more control, more data, and more tools to actually understand what's happening in the cup. If you're one of those, I think it's a great buy. If not, I would recommend using a simple scale with timer, one of those that you can buy for 20 or 30 euros. But if you want to buy a Bookoo, I'll leave an affiliate link in the description with a 5% discount code, valid as of when I'm filming this. They ship worldwide, free shipping at least to Portugal, that I checked, and using the link doesn't cost you anything extra. And if you would rather not, that's completely fine, of course. If this video was helpful, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to support the channel. Thanks for watching and ciao!